So what's the one thing that's holding back the perfect electric car? Is it the range? Maybe the charging time? Well, one company, QuantumScape, thinks the problem is the battery itself. So they've gone and redesigned it from the ground up. And honestly, what they've created could change literally everything. Let's get into it.
For so many of us, the idea of an EV is amazing, but it's always followed by these nagging questions. Am I actually going to make it to my destination? Or how long am I going to be stuck at this charger? And these aren't just little annoyances, right? They're at the very heart of the EV experience, and they all point back to one single critical component: the battery. Okay, this chart really tells the whole story. For about 3 decades, lithium-ion batteries were on an incredible roll, just getting better and better, year after year. But look at what's happened lately. That curve, it's flattening out. We are hitting a wall, a fundamental limit to the technology we're using right now. So to get a real breakthrough, we can't just make tiny improvements. We need a complete and total overhaul.
And that is exactly where QuantumScape comes in, with a totally radical new approach. I mean, they went back to the drawing board and rethought the entire foundation of how a battery works. Their solution? It's an anode-free solid-state battery that just completely throws out the old rulebook.
So let's break down what makes this so incredibly different. A normal battery has 3 main parts you need to know about: a factory-built anode, a kind of flimsy separator, and a flammable liquid electrolyte. QuantumScape's design is just brilliant in its simplicity. It gets rid of the liquid and uses a solid ceramic separator. And here's the kicker: it gets rid of the factory-built anode completely. Instead, the anode is actually formed on the fly, out of pure lithium metal as the battery charges. This one change, it's the key to absolutely everything. By re-engineering the battery this way, QuantumScape unlocks a whole bunch of game-changing advantages. I mean, getting rid of that bulky anode gives you way more room for energy, which means a much longer driving range. We're talking something like driving from LA to Vegas on a single charge. Plus, that solid separator is non-flammable, which makes the battery a whole lot safer. And this streamlined design, it also promises faster charging, a much longer lifespan, and, once they get to scale, a lower price tag. Okay, so the theory sounds fantastic, right? But does it actually work in the real world? Let's look at the data and see what happens when you really put this technology to the test.
And this isn't just QuantumScape patting themselves on the back. Volkswagen's own battery company, PowerCo, put these cells through a seriously brutal endurance test. And the results are, well, they're kind of astounding. After over 1,000 full charge cycles, that's the equivalent of driving from New York to LA and back 50 times, the battery still held over 95% of its original capacity. In other words, it basically didn't age at all. And it's not just the numbers that are so impressive. Just listen to what the CEO of PowerCo, Frank Blome, had to say. He's saying this could be a battery that gives you long range, charges super fast, and practically does not age. That is a massive vote of confidence from one of the biggest players in the auto industry, period. Okay, but what about charging? This right here, this is the number that could be a total game changer for anyone who's ever driven an EV. Their latest cells can go from a 10% to an 80% charge in less than 15 minutes. Just think about that for a second. That's not a long, boring wait at a charging station. That's a quick pit stop. It's basically the same as filling up with gas. So we have these incredible lab results. That's fantastic. But the real ultimate test is seeing if this technology can actually survive out in the wild, powering a real vehicle on a real road. And their journey to get to this point has been this long, steady climb. They got started way back in 2010, partnered up with Volkswagen pretty early on, and have just been methodically hitting key milestones ever since. This year, they started shipping their first B samples, and maybe most exciting of all, we finally saw their tech inside a vehicle for the first time. Back in September of last year, at this huge mobility conference in Germany, the world got its first real look. A vehicle actually powered by QuantumScape cells. And it wasn't just any old car. It was a high-performance Ducati V21L electric race motorcycle. So why a motorcycle? Well, because it's the ultimate stress test. A race bike demands a ridiculous amount of power and energy, all crammed into a tiny package. The battery is just out there in the open with no complex cooling systems to hide any flaws. It's a high-stakes, high-visibility demonstration, and it's the perfect way to show off what this technology can really, truly do. So the tech is impressive, and we know it's already in a vehicle. But how do you get it into millions of cars all over the world?
Well, this is where QuantumScape business plan is honestly just as innovative as its battery technology. They're taking what's called a capital light approach. So instead of spending tens of billions of dollars to build their own giant factories from the ground up, they're focused on being the brains of the whole operation. Their goal is to monetize their core technology and their patents through really smart partnerships and licensing deals.
Their plan is pretty straightforward. First, they work super closely with automakers like Volkswagen to develop and test the battery cells for their specific cars. Then, instead of building the factories themselves, they'll license the technology and the manufacturing know-how to their partners, who will then build out production. This lets QuantumScape collect these high-margin royalties without that huge, risky upfront investment. It's a much faster, smarter way to get their tech into the market.
And they are absolutely not trying to do this alone. They're building this powerful ecosystem of world-class partners. They've got major automakers on board, a cell manufacturing expert with Murata, and a materials science giant in Corning to help make their unique separator. They're basically assembling an all-star team to bring this thing to the world.
And their ambition here, it's huge. They're not just trying to build a better battery for EVs. Their actual, stated goal is to revolutionize energy storage as a whole. It's a really bold vision, but it's one that's quickly becoming a reality, and it's backed by real tech, real data, and real partners.
So where does all this leave us? We've got performance that could finally kill range anxiety, charging times that are on par with a gas station, and a really clever plan to scale it all globally. You have to wonder, could this be it? Is this the technology that finally gets rid of all the compromises and unlocks that all-electric future we've all been waiting for?